Hello, this is Phil Rosenthal. I created the show Everybody Loves Raymond, and you're listening to my interview with Elaine Goodman on Gogoodman.com.au.
You're obviously a comedy writer, and that's what you're known for, and that's what most of your career has been. What's the earliest memory you have of comedy having an effect on you?
Oh, I'm going to say watching television.
Bit more specific?
Probably... Yeah, I can be specific. I was hesitating for a moment because I was thinking my first memories of comedy came through the television. Do you get a show, one of our old shows called The Honeymooners?
No, I haven't heard of it. I'm assuming it's before my time, but it's not something that I've heard of.
Yeah, it was a very famous sitcom here, starring Jackie Gleason and Art Carney, and it was very simple. It was a bus driver who lived in a kind of poor neighborhood, and he had a wife and a best friend who worked in the sewer, and they were really funny together. He was really fat, and his friend who worked in the sewer was really skinny. So it was kind of almost a modern day Laurel and Hardy type of relationship. But that influenced me a lot because it was so funny. And I just remember, even as a little kid, laughing. And then I would go to the movies, and I would see movies that had funny people in, like Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins. I thought he was funny. And I thought everyone I watched on TV who was doing comedy, it just really, really made me laugh. And, oh, well, now I know the earliest influence. It would have to be my father, because my father is funny. He's 90 years old now, and he's still funny. And so humor was just a big part of our growing up. And in my house, if we weren't yelling, we were laughing.
The Honeymooners, how many years did that show go for? Like, what kind of decade are we talking? Are we talking the 60s or 70s?
I was born in 1960, and that show was already in reruns. It was from 1955.
Oh, wow.
And so I was watching it in reruns even then. But Jackie Gleason, who was the star of that show, had a variety show by the time I was born, and I watched that every week. And they would sometimes do a sketch of the Honeymooners. In fact, it started as a sketch on the variety show, and then they took a year and just made a sitcom of it in 1955. So there were only 39 original episodes of that show, which I own and have studied, not because I wanted to be a scholar, but because I love them so much.
I know here in Australia, we only got TV in 1956. I know America had it decades before that. But was there ever comedy on radio in America?
Absolutely. In fact, Jackie Gleason started on radio. A lot of famous comedians started on radio and then moved to television.
So do you remember listening to the radio as much as watching TV when you were younger?
No, because the radio kind of went out in the 50s. I was born in 1960. It kind of was all finished by 1950. Once television came, radio entertainment really went away.
So you've mentioned
as far as sitcoms and things like that, variety shows.
You've mentioned you spent a lot of time, and from other interviews that I've heard, you spent a lot of time in your younger years watching TV. You weren't really much of an outdoorsy kind of person. Do you remember the first time?
Not at all. Not at all.
Do you remember the first time you ever thought of a career in television?
Yeah, I wanted to be, when you're a kid, you don't know that there's writing and directing and producing. I would watch The Honeymooners and I would just think, I want to be like them. I wanted to do that, and I would imitate them. And then I would get laughs from my parents' friends by imitating the people on TV that I saw. And I like getting laughs. And so I would be in the school plays, even in elementary school, and then people would laugh. And so I saw this as a way to make friends, and to just because it felt good, I would keep doing it. So I always thought I would be a comic actor. And so that's what I pursued in high school, in all the high school plays, and then in college, that's what I studied. And then I moved into New York City, and it was a little harder to get work as an actor than it was in high school and college.
Did you ever try stand-up? Did you do a lot of stand-up?
I tried it once, and it was terrifying to me. I tried it when I was, I think, 19 years old. I think it's the most difficult thing a person can do. It's so, you have to be so confident. You're not even, a singer at least has a song, but a stand-up comedian has to rely on his own personality and his own words, too, has to write everything. I was mortified by the whole prospect of it. And I survived the evening, but I thought, there's got to be a better way.
It's an interesting point you say. To be a stand-up comedian, you have to be confident. I guess it goes into the psychology of being a comedian, which is what I'm really interested in, and we can talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on. But do you think that, like, they're confident on stage, but a lot of them aren't confident off stage? Do you think you maybe were a bit too balanced to be a comedian?
That's very possible. I know a lot of comedians who are very, very insecure and neurotic off stage, definitely. And they're only comfortable on stage. That's a very good point. But a lot of us are, I think, in any art form, in any field, we're confident in our work, but not confident the rest of the time. And there might be a direct proportion to how uncomfortable you are in real life to how good you are in your job, right?
So how good do you think this interview is going so far?
You must be very unconfident in your real life, because this is going very well.
Thank you. I read that you made a decision at 7 years old to avoid being an astronaut in order to get on the Ed Sullivan Show and just focus on comedy, because that was a little bit easier, and it makes sense. But were you always a level-headed, mature kind of kid?
I think I was a self-preservationist, is what I was. I loved the space program. I grew up with the space program, in the United States. I was watching the rocket launches, and we had real-life heroes, these astronauts. The way they were promoted and the way and what they were doing was the bravest, most wonderful thing, and the way they were celebrated. And just the dream of going into outer space. I mean, it was real-life science fiction. And so I was obsessed with this, and I wanted to do this until I realized the danger. So then I said, maybe I should just switch it up.
And that was at 7 years old. It's a pretty bold move to make as a 7-year-old.
Yeah, well, I know nobody really wants to die, so
yeah,
I guess that was in my mind.
Well, yeah, a stage death is a bit different to a real death, right?
You got it.
Yeah.
Something that feels the same, though, probably.
You started doing drama and theatre in school. Yeah, I heard an interview where you said you didn't want to be a dramatic actor. So why did you take the theatre path into the industry?
Why did I take the theatre part?
Why did you take the theatre path into the industry? Because I heard on an interview where you said you didn't want to focus on being a drama genre kind of actor.
Yes. Well, I always thought that I could do comedy in theater, that I would be a comic actor. The truth is, you need to know how to act in dramas before you can act in comedy, because comedy isn't just being funny. The best comedy people can also do serious drama, because the funniest things you see have the same level of commitment as a drama or a dramatic actor. That kind of commitment, when you're serious about doing something very silly and you approach it as if it's natural and dramatic, it's funnier. So great comedians, I think, great comedy actors are also great dramatic actors. They're just also able to put that extra thing on it, which is be funny.
Do you think some comedy actors don't quite have the confidence to go into dramatic acting? Like I know, like Adam Sandler, he's never really tried drama. Some of his movies are legendary. His earlier movies are legendary comedies, but he's never really tried to venture into drama. So do you think that's a confidence thing?
Well, there's actually a couple of movies that I could tell you where he did venture into more dramatic work. One is called Punch Drunk Love, and then there's one that I actually have a small role in myself as an actor. It's called Spanglish, and he has a dramatic role in that movie. In fact, I would say it's more dramatic than comic. It was from James L. Brooks, who did Terms of Endearment and Broadcast News.
Is that,
you know who that is?
Yes, James L. Brooks. Has he been done The Simpsons as well?
Exactly.
Yeah, I knew that name. I recognized that name. I'm such a '90s kid. You can probably tell.
Yeah. But he's a great writer and director of movies also. And it's funny that you mentioned Adam Sandler, because that was a movie where he was dramatic. Now, he makes a lot more money being in comedies that he makes, and they're very popular. But a lot of even Jim Carrey has done dramatic work.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of...
We know Robin Williams did too, and
won an Oscar for being a dramatic actor.
I'm singling them out as good dramatic actors, because to show you that even the comedians that we think of as the silliest ones, Robin Williams, Jim Carrey, Adam Sandler, they can all do drama as well.
From what I've researched, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just going off what I've read and what I've heard, you seem to have luckily fallen into writing once you moved to LA, because you reconnected with people that you knew earlier on in your life, and
right.
You became a bit of a yes man. Like you started to say yes to a lot of different things that came your way, because you didn't really have a choice financially at that stage. You also got signed by an agent pretty quickly. When you think about that time, how much of your current career or do you attribute to luck, and how much do you attribute to hard work?
We can never underestimate the value of luck, because I know a lot of people who work very hard and they don't have the luck that I was fortunate enough to have. There is such a thing as being in the right place at the right time. Now, having said that, you must be prepared for that right place and that right time. So there's an awful lot of hard work, dedication, commitment, and love of what you do that goes into being prepared, right? Mm-hmm. So I would never tell somebody, don't work hard, it's all luck, because it isn't.
I guess once you get that luck, you need to have that mentality of hard work to push it further and to keep that luck going, right?
Absolutely. Your luck has to continue, but you'd be surprised how often luck follows hard work and perseverance.
Let's skip forward to the 90s, because I know you started doing a lot of writing in the 80s, and I think you got a show on HBO as well. But if we skip forward to the 90s, when I when I came into the world, where you're starting to establish yourself as a writer on a show called Coach, and you've just helped write an episode of Frasier as well. Were you set on writing at this stage?
Yes. I had given up acting because I realized that when I was an actor, I was eating pizza and tuna fish and hot dogs for dinner. And when I became a writer, I realized I could eat whatever I wanted. And so I was now a full-fledged writer. I've been writing for 4 or 5 years, first with a partner, and then we separated and we became individual writers, which was even more lucrative for us. It was during my first year as a solo writer that I got a tape of a comedian and they were looking for a writer to create a show for this comedian named Ray Romano. And Ray had been a stand-up for about 12 years, and he had gotten on the David Letterman show. And from that one 6-minute appearance, David Letterman said there should be a show for that guy. And when they were searching for writers, they came across a script or two that I wrote. And so I got to have a meeting with him, and we hit it off.
Oh, this is absolutely what I love. Like this part of the comedy industry and the entertainment industry, the part that I was really too young to do research into it at the time. So I just go back and talk to all these different actors and producers and talk about the 90s sitcoms, which is what I've loved. I've watched a lot of 90s sitcoms over the past few years to try and catch up.
Oh, great.
So I'm ready to jump straight into Raymond. Did you have a plan, like when you're writing for Frasier and you're writing for all different kinds of shows, did you have a plan to create your own show from scratch, like your own commercial sitcom?
When you're writing for other people and you're writing on their shows, there is a dream sometimes of having your own show. I had a dream of maybe someday having my own show, because I was seeing how shows were made, and I was working on other people's shows, and there were people, I loved how they ran the show, and then I also worked for people where I didn't love how they ran the show, and you learn just as much about what not to do as you do from what to do. And so I thought maybe someday I'll be lucky enough to have my own show. And when I met Ray Romano, I realized this could be it, because we seem to have a similar background, and I like his way about him, and he told me about his actual life, and I realized that there could be a show right there, and what I don't know about his life, I could put in the aspects of my life into it. And I don't know, it seemed to work. I think that's my answer, is that, I did dream about one day having my own show after working in the business for about 4 or 5 years. And then I was lucky enough to get that chance.
So now let's jump deep into Everybody Loves Raymond. Your father, grandfather, and great-grandfather were all tailors. How did you draw the short straw and subsequently create one of the greatest sitcoms in history? Just take me through this story, put as much detail as you want into it, and take me through the process from Ray getting contacted by CBS after the Letterman appearance to you getting involved and running the whole thing and making one of the greatest sitcoms of all time. And I'm just going to sit back and listen for a little bit before we move on to the next question.
I don't know how much time you have, but
it's Saturday.
Ray,
it's based on your time limits. Yeah, not mine.
Well, Ray was a stand-up comedian. He'd been a stand-up for 12 years, and he finally got a shot at David Letterman. David Letterman said there should be a show for this guy after one 6-minute appearance. They set about looking for a writer to create the show. That was me. I got lucky, and I sat with Ray, and Ray, as I would with you, as I would with anyone, if I meet you for the first time, I say, tell me about yourself. And he says, well, I've got twin boys and an older daughter, and my parents live close by, and they're always bothering me, and my brother's a police sergeant. He's older, my older brother, but he's jealous of me, and he lives with them because he's divorced, and he touches every bite of food to his chin before he eats it, and he once looked at my award for comedy, and he said, oh, it never ends for Raymond. Everybody loves Raymond. And I said, wow. Well, there doesn't seem like there's anything there we can use.
I've heard that joke. You use that same joke on other interviews.
I said, I did say that was the show. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, you never acted before, so I'm not going to make you something that you're not. Why would I make you like the captain of a ship in Greece? You have this kind of family. Why not start there? And what I didn't know about his family, I filled in with the characters of my family. And so that was it. And I had no idea if, when I was writing the pilot, if anyone at CBS, the network here, would like it. That's all I was hoping for, was that one person at CBS would like the pilot and let us film the pilot. And then they said, okay, we like it. You can film a pilot. Now you have to cast it. And then we set about casting the rest of the characters. And we did. And we filmed the pilot. That seemed to go well. And they said, well, there's not a lot of big stars in it, so you're going to have this time slot, which isn't very good. But at least nobody expects anything on this time slot. And that turned out to be good because we had a chance to grow a little bit and get better. And then they moved us to a very good time slot when they had something that wasn't doing well. We had gotten good reviews, even in the lousy time slot. And so they moved us thinking maybe we'd do better, and we did do better. And then, it just built and built and built. The audience just kept coming back and growing, and we lasted 9 years.
Obviously, when you make a show loosely based on someone's life, you have to over-exaggerate it a bit to make it more funny and relatable to the audience. How do you know where to draw that line? How do you know when too much over-exaggeration is too much?
That's a very good question. In the writer's room, I had one rule, and the rule was, could this happen? It's not, would it definitely happen this way in real life every time, but could you believe that it could happen? And if it was somewhat crazy, it was our job to justify getting to that crazy place. Right?
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of shows that we watched where, it's crazy and it's not justified. This could never happen. You see it in movies all the time. You see it in TV shows all the time. And either subconsciously or consciously, the audience says that would never happen, and they kind of tune out. And they may not watch the show again. So that was a very, very important rule for me. Could this happen?
Were there things...
A lot of the show was based on, by the way, real things that happened to me or to Ray or to one of the other writers. The way we made the show was we would come in and talk about our lives. We made sure we were home every night for dinner, because if you worked for me, your job was to go home, get in a fight with your wife, and come back in and tell me about it. So that was a big part of where the stories were coming from. You can't write about real life unless you have one. And so that's what we did. 90% of the shows happened to one of us. And yes, we would stretch them a little bit and add things to make them fill out a half hour of television. But all that time, we're saying, could this happen in real life?
So some of the more extreme things that happened on the show are just a few different scenes, like Marie and Frank driving a car through Ray and Deborah's house, or Frank falling through the stairs. Like, is that all real?
Yes. The car thing happened to one of us. Somebody backed out of the driveway across the street and into their car that was parked. And I thought, we can do that. But there are real-life instances where cars drive into houses. What better metaphor for how intrusive the parents are than having them drive into the house, literally?
And then what about the bull in Robert's backside? And then we can move on to the next question. Did that happen to someone?
The bull actually happened. There was an incident in Queens, New York, where Ray and I both are from, and we saw this headline where a bull got loose at a rodeo, and the police had to corral the bull.
Right.
And the bull was loose on the streets of New York. And so we thought this could happen, where the bull would, hurt a police officer. That could very well happen, because the police were trying to capture a loose bull in New York City. So that's where that happened.
So you mentioned in the first question, you talked about the Honeymooners and how simple the writing was. Do you think Everybody Loves Raymond was a simply written show, and that's maybe where you got some of your inspiration from, just to keep it simple?
When I say simple, I mean that it was simply set. In other words, on the Honeymooners, 90% of the show took place in their kitchen.
Ah, right.
So that's what I mean by simple.
So it's not about the writing and how believable it is. Like you said, the show Everybody Loves Raymond had to be believable for it to be funny and for it to be long-lasting.
Yes, we were writing about our actual families, and we knew that if we were to be relatable to other people, that the show had to take place in the world, in the real world, in a world that you could believe. That's the only way it could be relatable. The moment it's not believable, it may cease to be unrelatable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Was the Honeymooners relatable?
It was to me. It was certainly a little broader than real life, maybe broader than Raymond as well, but that was, 40 to 50 years before us. And, the style was a little different. But it was relatable in that these were working class people who had believable jobs and believable relationships. He drove a bus. His best friend worked in the sewer. His wife was, the boss of their little house, their little apartment. Some things never change.
Everybody Loves Raymond is known as one of the biggest sitcoms of all time, but in that decade, it's always in the same sentence as Friends and Seinfeld. How big was the rivalry between Everybody Loves Raymond and those two other sitcoms on NBC?
Well, Seinfeld ended after our first year. So we never really had a rivalry with them. And we never really had a rivalry with Friends either. Friends was getting a much younger audience, and still gets a much younger audience. The styles of the two shows were quite different. Maybe there was a rivalry as for awards and things, but I never thought that way, really. We just were looking at our show and trying to make our show the best of that it could be. We were never trying to imitate one of the other shows. I guess there would be a rivalry if we thought we were occupying the same space as them, meaning that our show dealt with the same things as their show. And we never felt that it did. Ours was about an older man who's married and has a family. And Friends was about, people in their 20s exploring life in the city for the first time. So the shows felt very different to us.
So what do you remember what Everybody Loves Raymond was up against?
Oh, you mean the shows that are on right at the same time as us?
Yeah. So what was kind of your opposition
well,
that you had to beat out?
On Friday nights when we first started, there wasn't much competition, but nobody was watching TV of any kind at that point. I don't really remember what we were up against. I just know that the ratings were low because they were low for everyone on Friday. But when we moved to Monday, at a certain point, we were opposite Monday Night Football, which was the biggest show in the country, and Ally McBeal, which was another huge show. One Monday Night Football, you can imagine, was very popular with men, and Ally McBeal was very popular with women. And we thought, we're going to get killed now when they put those shows opposite us. And, within 3 months, we were beating both of them.
Wow.
crazy.
And
We were shocked.
Did you maintain that for the rest of the series?
I think yes.
Wow.
There were fewer networks then, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the numbers that we got were, in the tens of millions. So if when we departed, we had an audience of over 30 million people watching the finale.
Wow.
Which is very impressive by today's standards, but by the standards of the 1970s, where there were only 3 networks to choose from, I think All in the Family was getting a regular audience of 60 million people. So it's all comparative.
I even know Jay Leno's Tonight Show, when he was killing it, he was getting about 17 to 20 million. And now Jimmy Fallon's Tonight Show, because there's so much more opposition, he's getting about 3-4 million because it's spreading out more. The audience is spreading out more. But
the audience is so fractured, and the Internet allows you to watch whatever you want, whenever you want. So why watch anything when it's on? Jimmy Fallon gets millions of people watching and young people watching 3 minutes of his show because they pull out the best video and put it on YouTube, and that's how most people see that show.
That's a whole nother topic. Don't get me started on that.
Yeah.
I read in Brad Garrett's recent autobiography, I'm currently reading it now, and there was a chapter about his time on Raymond, that Ray wasn't there for his original audition. What did you like about him so much so that you changed the idea of his character, of the character of Ray's brother? Because originally he was going to be shorter than Raymond, but you came across Brad.
In real life, Ray's brother is shorter than him, and so there was a jealousy right there that the younger brother was literally having the older brother was literally having to look up to his younger brother. And you could see, being an older brother and being jealous that your younger brother is just taller than you. That's already bad, right?
Yeah.
So I figured we're looking for a younger, a shorter guy. And so all of a sudden, the opposite walks in. This talking tree walks into the audition room. And when he started talking with his deep voice, we fell over laughing. And I thought, well, this is another way to go, right? This guy is so much taller than Ray and is still jealous of Raymond because of all the other reasons, like Raymond is the baby, Raymond is cuter, Raymond is funnier maybe.
He has a safe job.
And this guy, the size of him didn't really matter. It was all about character. That really taught me a lesson. And the reason Brad Garrett got the role, more than any other reason, is because he was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Naturally funny as hell.
And what was Ray's first impression when he found out you liked Brad, who wasn't what
I think he
the
liked
original?
Him.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he liked him right away too. The moment he saw him, everybody liked him. It wasn't even every one of our cast members. We were really blessed by having the best possible people for each part. I couldn't imagine the show with anyone else in any of the parts. We had 5 really strong character actors playing these roles.
And you lead perfectly into my next question. We're going good, Phil. When you look at the cast compared to other sitcoms of the time, it was full of people who were either experienced comedians or really experienced actors. Friends was the show that made all those actors, but Everybody Loves Raymond, like Peter and Marie had 30, 40 years acting experience already under their belt, and Ray and Brad were already really experienced comedians. Did having that experienced cast make that process any easier?
Yes, anytime you can have great actors who know what they're doing, it makes it easier. That means you don't have to, teach them about what acting is, and they make the non-actor, at the time Ray was a non-actor, they make him stronger by setting an example. He was surrounded by great actors, and then he became a great actor.
And was Patricia, I'm not sure if Patricia had much acting experience before that either. She did. She was a fully trained actress. She had been on many shows before us, and she worked in theater, and she was tremendous. I interviewed Andy Kindler a couple of years ago, and I couldn't.
I love Andy.
I couldn't actually find the bit in our interview that I remember him saying, but I remember him saying that you only wanted to do you wanted to stop the show after about 4 seasons or something.
About 7 seasons. I thought that was enough. Yeah.
So what convinced you to go that little bit further?
We thought of an area where we could get more stories, and that was to have Robert get married and bring in his new wife's family. And so that got us a couple of extra seasons by infusing some new blood into the show. Because you start to run out of story ideas. We did 210 episodes, which is a lot of anything to do, all about one family, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like we were a film show and we could evolve into, now the kids are teenagers. It was happening in, real time, and they were as old as they were. We felt that after 7 years, maybe it's enough. I had never seen a sitcom get better after 7 years. But then we found this avenue to at least get a third of our stories from another area, meaning this new family that our family would be forced to reckon with. And that was very well cast as well. And we loved doing the show with them too.
I mean, even today, you don't get many sitcoms going past 10 years, and that was similar at the time. When you look at a show like The Simpsons, which has successfully done exactly what you explained was the hardest thing to do in the aging thing, how do you think The Simpsons has done it so well?
Well, they're a cartoon, so they have a lot more flexibility.
Like
not only that, but
story-wise as well.
They can defy the laws of nature by being a cartoon. Their cast can stay the same age. They can bring in, there's a certain fantasy to doing it as an animated show. And you can do literally anything, and you don't have to stick to real life at all.
Right. So if you have obviously a live actor show, you have to kind of stick to the laws of reality. Nothing can fall out of the sky.
And
yeah.
It's not just that the kids aren't getting old enough; the older people are getting older. So you have to take that into consideration too. By the way, Peter Boyle passed away the year after we went off the air, so we wouldn't have had very many more shows to do anyway.
And you just led into my next question as well. You've lost a few of the main actors. Doris Roberts passed away last year. She was 90. Yes. Peter Boyle passed away, I think, 2007. And also Sawyer Sweeten tragically passed away last year as well. Can you take me through your favourite Frank and Marie moment of the series and your favourite twins moment? Do you have one or two that stick out for each of them?
For me, the parents are very dear to me because I was pretty much writing my parents. So many moments were from my actual family and attitude. There's one line that sticks out in my mind. She says to him, Marie says to Frank, "Don't tell me to be quiet. I have a mind of my own, and I can contribute. I'm not just some trophy wife."
That was in the toaster, when they gave back the toaster.
And he looks at her and says, "You're a trophy wife?" what contest in hell did I win? That pretty much sums up the relationship. She actually thinks she's a trophy wife, and he gives it to her. I just love them. I love them when the car comes through the house and the audience is shocked, and the door opens on the passenger side, and Frank gets out, and then the door opens on the driver's side, and Marie gets out. The laugh from the audience is so big because they know these characters. That to me is everything. That they know the characters and they know what's going on in everybody's mind without them having to say a word. They know what the feelings are. They know what the thoughts are. Sometimes the actors' faces were so good that we didn't even need the dialogue to convey what they were thinking. And all of our actors had that ability to register their thoughts on their faces. That's no small thing.
So it's comedy through
Sometimes
silence.
we would have lines written for them to say, and then the audience would laugh at just their face, and then we would cut the line because the line couldn't top it.
Like, even, for example, I think my favorite episode is the Halloween candy one. And like you said, the silence is powerful. When you see Brad whisper into Peter's ear what those candies actually were, and his face just drops, it's hilarious.
Yes. You know what they're thinking.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's the most powerful weapon in comedy.
Really? The silence?
Absolutely. A lot of shows, they don't know what they have. They don't know that that's the most powerful weapon. The silence is as important, if not more important, than the written line. They try to cram jokes in, thinking, oh my God, we got to go really fast because we're going to lose them otherwise. It becomes almost a wallpaper of noise if the lines aren't terrific.
And it's almost in slow motion, the silence.
Yes. Well, you see reactions, and you give. First of all, it seems more believable because that's how real life is. It's nobody just talking all the time with funny jokes every second. There's pauses. There's serious moments. And when you have these pauses and the serious moments, by the way, it makes the funny ones all the funnier because it feels like it came from real life.
And what about, do you have a quick memory of the twins?
Well, they were so adorable and so great. We always tried to not make it about the kids and make it kind of a Full House type of show. But obviously, as they got older, we would write more and more for them. One show that stands out is something that really happened to me, The Angry Family, where we went to the kids' school and our son, his first grade class, was reading stories that they wrote for the parents. And kids were writing little things about a lion who had chicken pox, and one girl gets up and reads a story about a spaceship. And then our son gets up and opens his book and starts to read The Angry Family. The dad was mad at the mom. Here's a picture. The mom was mad at the dad. Here's the picture. And everyone turns and looks at us and is laughing. And I want to die. But then I suddenly realized, how lucky am I to have a kid who writes for my television show?
Is that a good mentality to have? Did that mentality ever get you in trouble with Monica or with your kids?
Sure. My parents once called because I made fun of their relationship with my brother's in-laws, right? I made fun of that relationship. And I cast actors and I had them say certain things that their in-laws had said. and that the way they reacted was like, oh, we hate them, right? On the show. And right after that show aired, my mother said, "Are you out of your mind? We have to see these people." And I said, "I'm sorry, but your comfort is something I'm willing to sacrifice for this program."
Was that like a Thanksgiving episode, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah. When
you first meet Deborah's parents. Yeah.
Oh man, you had some great highlights. Obviously, I've got the whole box set on DVD. Oh God, I've watched it like 3 times over. And
very happy.
And I think you're someone from interviews that I've listened that you can just quote lines whenever you want. You're that kind of comedy nerd, and it's really cool to watch.
Well, I guess if I wasn't so involved with every episode of the show, a lot of showrunners in my position, they leave the show after a year or so to go on to make another show. And I didn't leave because I knew I was writing about my family and I would never have this opportunity again. That this was a very special gift to me to be able to have that opportunity. And so I stayed with it. And when I stayed with it, I made sure that I would be happy with it. And so I was very personally involved with every scene of every show. So I remember it because I was there and there intensively.
The 90s was absolutely saturated with good quality sitcoms. Did you have some favorites outside of Raymond? The showrunners and creators, did they go and watch other sitcoms either for pleasure or to get different ideas?
Sure. Well, Frasier was a wonderful show with great writing and acting. Seinfeld obviously had hilarious episodes, and there were a lot of shows that we loved. The Simpsons was great. South Park was great. For writing, we watched a lot of stuff. Larry Sanders' show was one of my great idols. Gary Shandling, got to be friends with him before he passed away, and he was just a lovely guy and a great, funny man. So yeah, I mean, I'm still a fan. It's not just my business. I'm a fan, and the reason I'm in the business is because I'm a fan, because I love it so much. So this thing that started with me watching television as a child, it's never left me.
And that's amazing because you've worked in the industry so hard and for so long, and you've seen the industry from top to bottom, and you still come out of it as a fan. That's something I really admire.
Well, I will say that because of the business, there's not as much great stuff as there used to be because the business has gotten a little worse. And what I mean by that is there's an obsession with money that has just taken over. It's taken over every aspect of our lives. And this kind of short-term thinking, which is just to grab ratings now, what will get them to watch right now instead of any kind of long-term strategy. I mean, this affects the whole world, this type of thinking. And so, I don't have to tell you that when you don't think long-term, you kind of make sure there is no long-term.
And this goes into my next question really well. Again, this quality of sitcom with a live studio audience is gradually disappearing because single camera sitcoms are more popular, the few that there are now, and there's this influx of reality TV because it's cheap. Do you think sitcoms will always have a special place on TV, or do you see reality TV completely taking over?
I think it's cyclical. I think what goes around comes around, right? So I do believe that it's hit driven. So as soon as there's a sitcom hit that's 4 cameras, the way we did our show and the way some shows still do it, the number one show in America is still The Big Bang Theory, which is a conventional 4-camera with an audience sitcom. It's still the number one sitcom, so they can't say people don't like those.
It is amazing, but outside The Big Bang Theory and a show like Last Man Standing, which I love as well, there's not much else that's on offer because of things like the Kardashians, or even at the moment in Australia. On free-to-air television, there's about 6 building shows, 6 shows that involve dating and hooking people up, and about 6 talent-finding shows. And every other night, the top rating show is the news. Like, I don't know if that's the same in America, but we are really lacking comedy and even live comedy, like a talk show. We haven't had a talk show since 2009. So we're really going towards that kind of cheap television, find this strange person and make them famous. Is that happening in America?
I can't say that we don't have talk shows. We have quite a few. But there are more reality shows than ever. There's more everything than ever. And so there's more bad stuff than ever just because there's more everything. And there's always been, good shows, what we consider good, has always been in short supply just because there's more stuff that's bad in the world. That's just how it is.
I guess cable television has helped that as well.
Well, these reality shows are much cheaper to produce than scripted shows. And if they're going to get similar ratings, the networks figure, why bother with these sitcoms if we can save money? It's all money. If we can save money and have this on and get the same ratings, why not have it?
And then is that a reason you don't get a show that's getting 10 million views a night?
Yes, that's one good reason.
So it is kind of cyclical. Everything's connected, and it's fascinating to me, like this whole development. And I hope it goes back to the way it was in the 80s and 90s, because that's the generation I kind of missed out on, because I either wasn't born or I was too young to really interpret it.
It will come back around, maybe not as robustly as it was in the 80s and 90s, but there'll be a favorite sitcom of yours coming up. There'll be all kinds of things to watch that you'll like. There always are, because they want you to watch. They want you to be entertained. That's the only way they make money.
Yeah. Now, if we move on from 90s comedy and Everybody Loves Raymond, that's amazing. Like, the insight's incredible. Tell me about I'll Have What Phil's Having. In recent times, we've seen Jerry Seinfeld with Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, Jay Leno with Jay Leno's Garage. Is this the project you've always wanted to do? I haven't been able to watch much of it because I can't access the CBS website content, like videos from Australia, which is really annoying. But tell me a little bit about it and what it means to you.
It's not on CBS. It was on PBS.
Oh, PBS.
And now it's on Netflix. Do you get Netflix there?
We do, but we don't get everything that America gets.
I see. You might be able to. Have you checked Netflix to see if I'll Have What Phil's Having is on?
Yeah. I watch Netflix every night. I can have another look, but I guess is much of it on YouTube or anything?
I think some of it is on YouTube. Take a look.
Okay, so I'll go back on YouTube and have a look. But tell me about what it means to you.
Yeah,
it started
in, I think, the year 2000. We did an episode of Raymond where they went to Italy. Do you remember that episode?
Yeah, a double episode.
Yes. So I saw that episode started when I asked Raymond if he'd ever been to Europe, and he said no. And I said, why not? He goes, I'm not really interested in other cultures. Even his own culture, Italian. And so I thought, well, we got to do an episode where we send him to Italy with this attitude of not really being interested, and send him back with my attitude as someone who loves to travel and is turned on by travel and the food and everything and the people. And so we did that episode, and I saw the transformation that happened to the character, happened to the person, happened to Ray. And I got such a kick out of it, and I thought, I want to do this for everybody. How do I do this for everybody? I want this show where I go around and I turn you on to different places through the food and the laughs. And so for 10 years after Raymond ended, I was trying to get that show, and now I have it. Right.
So is this your long-term thing? You're happy doing this the long term, or do you want to get back into doing another sitcom eventually?
I'd be very happy to do a sitcom again. I've tried to do other sitcoms, but as we were talking about, the business is somewhat different now. And so a lot of the things that I do aren't really valued, or maybe I don't do them as well as I used to. I don't know what the reason is. But if I could do a sitcom that I cared about and I had a network supporting me, I would be happy to do it. But in the meantime, if I get to do this food and travel show where I go around the world and show you where to eat, I could be happy doing that the rest of my life. Who wouldn't?
Have you thought about coming to Australia for it?
I'm coming.
Oh, when are you coming?
I'm going to come this year. I'm going to come in 2017. I'm coming to Sydney, I think.
Ah, are you coming to Melbourne?
I might.
Oh, okay.
People tell me that the food in Melbourne is even better than Sydney. Is that true?
Literally, we've got everything. If you like, we've got every kind of nationality in Melbourne. We're known for our multicultural. We're known for three things. We're known for our sport, like our events. We're known for our alleyways, and we're known for our range of food, our range of nationalities, our multiculturalism. So if you come to Melbourne, I guarantee you'll find something you'll like.
I'm sure I will. I can't wait to come. I was at Sydney once a few years ago with my movie. I made a movie called Exporting Raymond, where it was a documentary about the Russians calling me and asking me to turn my sitcom into Everybody Loves Kostya in Moscow. And so I went and filmed the whole thing. And it's a documentary called Exporting Raymond, and it played at the Sydney Film Festival.
I think that's on YouTube. I'll go back and watch it.
I think you'll laugh. If you like our show, I think you'll laugh at this.
Now, we've only got a few questions left. I want to briefly touch on a couple of things that I found interesting about you as well, things that you've done. Firstly, what do you remember? And this is coming from, as I mentioned before, you did an interview with Mark Malkov about working with Johnny Carson and meeting Johnny Carson. Firstly, what do you remember about writing a skit for Bill Clinton? I've heard you tell the story about him mispronouncing a certain word. Is that a gig you walk into with your head held high and your chest puffed out, knowing that you know what you want, or do you have to be kind of reserved because it's the president?
I was a nervous wreck because it was the president. I thought, well, how did they let me in here to do this? But because I had the show, the Everybody Loves Raymond show, they thought I was some kind of expert. And so I guess I knew how to make a comedy thing, but it's very different when you're directing the president of the United States. And I didn't, he mispronounced a word, and I corrected him mainly because I thought he would want to be corrected. I thought that he would not want to be on film mispronouncing a certain word. The word was a game called Yahtzee.
I know the game.
You have that game in Australia?
Yeah, I used to play it a lot as a kid.
And he pronounced it Yazzie. And I said, excuse me, Mr. President, I believe it's pronounced Yahtzee. And he said, that's what I said. And now most people, I think, normal people would have said, of course, sir. You're right, sir. Thank you, sir. But I said, I'm just not hearing the T. And I said, it's Yahtzee. And he says, a little more annoyed now, that's what I said. And then I said, perfect. My brother, who was on the shoot with me as a producer, came up to me when we were done. And, you're filming, and there's like 40 people standing around watching the President of the United States make this little comedy video. It's very novel. It was very novel then. Now, the presidents, they do it every week. They're doing a comedy video. But we were kind of the first one, with the President of the United States in the Oval Office doing a comedy bit. My brother came up to me when we were done. He goes, I can't believe you talk to the President of the United States with the same tone of voice that you call me a dick.
And
I said, he had to get it right. You know, it's for the country. It's for the country.
Did any of his staff back you up, or was it just you?
No one was going to say anything. I'm the only idiot who opened his mouth. I was the director. You know, would I have done it the same way? I don't know. I think I would. Maybe there was a more tactful way to do it. I don't know. But listen, we got along great. And 3 years after the thing, he still recognized me at a party across the room. He said, "Phil, the man who made me famous." So he seemed to be okay.
Now,
he's very nice.
I hate getting political. I don't like politics much at all because for multiple reasons. But would you tell Donald Trump that he's wrong?
Just give me a chance.
Do you think you'd have the confidence to say you're wrong, Donald, or Mr. Trump?
I don't know who he's having killed. I don't know what the dangers are now, giving this man absolute power. I don't know if you'd be stupid to say anything negative. But, yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't think they're going to be calling me to do the Donald Trump comedy video.
And now I've got one more question, and then I've got one of your quotes that I won't read you, as I mentioned before. Because of that skit, you and Ray got to meet Johnny Carson. I think it was in 2001. Yes. Now, being
That's
someone
right. It was right after that, right after the Clinton video aired at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, that I got a call from a friend of mine who said my friend saw the video and wanted to get a copy of it. And I said, "How would you like to have lunch with the guy who made it?" And he said, "Yes." So my friend asked me, "Do you want to have lunch with Johnny Carson?" And I said, "Well, yes, I do."
Now, being someone that's only been able to watch just YouTube clips of Carson, I interpret him as, and I've watched a documentary of him as well, I interpret him as one of those people that not many people actually know who he really is outside of the entertainment industry. So, and I put him in the same category as like Rodney Dangerfield, Don Adams, even Robin Williams, and more recently, someone like Lady Gaga. How did you interpret him from watching him on TV as a kid to meeting him in real life? Did you get to meet the real Johnny Carson or the showbiz Johnny Carson?
I feel like I met the real guy, and he was absolutely charming and nice. And I think what made him so beloved on American television is that there was very little artifice there. You felt like you were seeing the real person on TV, and that person was the person that we had lunch with for 2 hours.
So he wasn't that kind of recluse, because after he quit, he made like 1 or 2 television appearances, and then he disappeared for good. He just didn't come back.
That's right. That's right. And when we saw him, he had been out of the public eye for 8 years.
Yet he still had that showbiz about him.
But he was who he was. He was a little older, but he was Johnny Carson. He was the same guy, and he couldn't have been nicer. We would talk about bits that we loved from his show, and he would reenact them for us.
Wow! And did you get a photo with him?
You know, I didn't, because I think in 2001, I don't think we had the cell phone, right? We didn't have we didn't have it. But you know, also out of respect for him, if he didn't want to be seen anymore, we wouldn't say, "Can we get a picture?" Right?
Yeah.
If he didn't want to be photographed, we wouldn't do that. But listen, you bring up a very good point. Why didn't I get a picture with him? That would have been good to have.
Or an autograph on a napkin or something?
Something. Nope. We didn't.
Wow.
We didn't want to bother him. He was so generous with his time. He was so nice, and he spent, as I said, 2 hours. He didn't have to do that. He could have just said hello in his office, but he had lunch with us and seemed to really enjoy it. It was really nice.
Now, I've got a quote of yours from the Wall Street Journal, and I want to dissect it a little bit, and then I can let you go. I don't want to, but I have to. I mean, this is amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Now, the quote is, watching comedy as a comedy... Sorry, I'll start again. Watching comedy is different as a comedy writer. It's an occupational hazard. If you're a magician and you know how the trick is done, it isn't magic anymore. That's often what it feels like watching other comics perform, unless they're really, really funny, at which point I forget everything I've ever learned about my craft and just sit there, dissolved into laughter. If I can even add an extra layer of enjoyment, I know how it's done, and then I realize that I don't know anything. And that's from the Wall Street Journal. Now, we talked a little bit about the psychology of comedy earlier on in the interview. Do you find that if you know how comedy is done and you actually know how that comedy is feeling, do you take on their kind of emotions? Does it ever affect you if you're doing research into the comedy industry? Does it have a mental effect on you? Because it is, like, it's a positive industry, but there's also a lot of negativity. There's a lot of success, failure, ups, downs, happiness, sadness, and there's everything in the middle. There's addiction, there's death, there's absolutely everything. That's why I love it. But do you feel like it takes on a mental impact on you the more you look into it?
Do you mean, do I get affected negatively by working in comedy?
Well, positive or negatively. Like, you've come across a lot of different comedians. Have you ever taken on a depression that is so prevalent in the entertainment industry, but like in the comedy industry specifically?
I think you're who you are before your occupation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You if you're prone to depression, you're going to be depressed. Maybe comedy is a way out of that for many of us. Bruce Springsteen recently said he battles depression. And you're like, Bruce Springsteen, you're the most joyous performer who's ever lived. Yes, on stage, he is Bruce Springsteen, but off stage, he's even said this, I wish sometimes I was that guy, right? Mm-hmm. That makes total sense to me. When working in comedy, we get to be who we wish we were all the time. Some people are naturally funny all the time, and they don't have those feelings. But other people, it's on and off. It's Robin Williams is a perfect example of a manic depressive, where he could be the funniest person alive and then be so down that he does what he does what he did. There's no rule. Everyone is different. Every person is different, and you either bring your negativity to your work, it informs your work, or it's pushed aside so you can do your work, or you have no negativity and you're very happy. Again, everyone is different.
I think someone that I've done a lot of research on, I mentioned before, Rodney Dangerfield, he was insane on stage or talk shows or whenever he did cameo appearances, but I saw like one of his last interviews with Howard Stern, and it was like he wasn't trying to be funny, it was him, and it was almost depressing that he wasn't Rodney Dangerfield.
That's right. That's right. Not everybody can be on all the time, right?
But even like when they're not on, they're just this completely different person that the fan or the person watching them on TV wouldn't expect. And it's that drastic change that fascinates me.
Sometimes.
And now, like, for example, before I let you go, like Lady Gaga, she's this crazy onstage persona, and I don't think there'd be a handful of people that would know the real Lady Gaga outside of her family, because she never lets up. And it's fascinating.
It's very possible. She takes every appearance as a performance. You know, she's going to wear something insane when going to the pharmacy because that's her public self, right?
Yeah. So let's finish on a happy note, because that's kind of a bit deeper. When you think of comedy, who do you think of, and is there a specific moment?
Wow.
What makes you laugh? I've just thought of this off the top of my head. I don't know if it makes sense, but what's that one thing that makes you laugh?
I love everyone who's ever tried to make me laugh. I love laughing, and I love making other people laugh. It's the greatest feeling in the world. It's I'll give you one that very recent. I ran into Mel Brooks, who I know a little bit. I ran into him 2 weeks ago on the street in Beverly Hills. I was walking. He was sitting at a cafe. I said, "Hey, Mel. Hey, how are you, Mel?" He says, "How you doing?" I said, "Congratulations. You won the Medal of Freedom. I saw the president put it around your neck, the Medal of Freedom. That's fantastic." He goes, "It's very heavy. It's very heavy." Like this. I said, "Oh, you can't wear it every day?" He goes, "No, it's too heavy." Right?
Yeah.
That's a funny person who's funny all the time. Can't help himself. Has to be funny. Is always funny. He wasn't on stage. He was just talking to another guy on the street and was funny. That's what I aspire to be. I failed miserably in this interview, but I aspire to be a funny person. Why? Because that's the good stuff in life. That's what we want to be. We want to be happy. Comedy equals happy.
You didn't fail in this interview, Phil. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've believed for a long time now that I was born maybe 10 or 20 years too late because I missed out on all the good comedy and all the good entertainment, the good part of the entertainment industry.
We're still here.
But
We're still here. We still have it.
Doing this interview has kind of eased that thought process a little bit. So thank you for spending so much time with me. It's a real pleasure, and I hope you enjoy Australia when you come out here again.
Thanks, Elaine. Thank you so much.